Academic integrity within CodeHS. So my name is Lindsay Roberts. I'm a PD specialist at CodeHS. Before coming to CodeHS, I was a high school computer science teacher in Rockville, Maryland. And I taught the AP CSP course, AP CSA, and then some intermediate courses in C++. I really care about academic integrity, and we're going to go over not just detection, but also prevention. And I will tell you the detection tools that we have now are like game changer tools. Where were these when I was teaching? Very helpful tools. So we'll start with our goal for the session will be to learn how to use CodeHS to prevent and detect cheating in your classroom. Some of these tools are going to be on the free side, some are going to be on the pro side. I'll tell you which ones are which. And first we'll look at why are our students cheating, right? Like what's making this happen? And given that information, can we prevent some of that cheating in some way? We're not going to be able to prevent all of it. So how do we detect the cheating that is going to slip through after our cheat prevention strategies? So we'll start with why students cheat. And I will say, I have, a lot of my own anecdotal thoughts, a lot of thoughts of the people at CodeHS, but we have tons of teachers in the room that have tons of experience. So please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. I know when I'm at a conference, I get as much out of the chat from other teachers as I do from the actual session. So please feel free to add your thoughts in the chat as well. I will say that cheating for me was always kind of it was emotional to me. It was hard for me to like let go of the feeling of like they're cheating because they don't care and why will they do that? But I think if we look at it from like kind of a less emotional, like I really want them to get this, why are they cheating? We can see some other reasons that maybe we're seeing cheating in our classroom. So the worst case scenario, kind of where my brain always wanted to go at first was they're lazy, they're bored, they don't care, that's why they're cheating. But we'll see in a second that a lot of students are cheating. It's not just like 10% of our kids that are doing this. So I know that not all of my students, right, were lazy or bored or didn't care. That can't be the main reason people are cheating. So we look at some other kind of, if we give them the benefit of the doubt, what are maybe some other reasons that we're seeing cheating in our classes? One might be the pressure that students are seeing to succeed. I know the school I taught at, a lot of my students were taking 5 AP classes at the same time. They're in marching band and they're on the soccer team. And it's like, well, I had a marching band competition last weekend and I had a soccer game on Monday and this project is due on Tuesday. So my only option, if I want to get an A, is to cheat. Like, what else am I going to do? I don't have time for this. And not from a lazy side, but like I have so much going on in my high school life. I don't have time to finish this assignment. So that's one place we're seeing it. We sometimes see students that think that the assignment that they've gotten is maybe more busy work. They don't really see the point of the assignment they're getting. So they think, I'll just put that in ChatGPT and it'll tell me the answer and whatever. I already know how to do this, so I'm not going to bother doing the actual assignment. One thing that I saw a lot when I would have meetings with students after they were caught cheating, where they said like, it's peer pressure. Like if my friend asks me, can I see that assignment? It's really hard as a 16-year-old to be like, no, I'm going to be like moral and just, and I'm not giving you the way. It's hard, right? When you have a bunch of your friends being like, no, come on, don't be lame, like give me the answer. So peer pressure is a big one there. A lot of my students, I felt like in my first year, didn't know what the consequences were of cheating. So when they get a 0 and I'd call their parents, they'd be like, whoa, I didn't know you were going to do all that just because I copied. So maybe not exactly knowing what the consequence is could be a reason that we're seeing cheating. And maybe the biggest one is the ease of access. Like it's so easy at this point for students to cheat. Now I've got, the scary ChatGPT is one of our, it's a good tool for us. It can be a negative tool sometimes when we're using it for this. I know I would see a lot of students in the hallway with like somebody else's math answers on their phone because they got texted in the group chat and then their answer, like it's so easy, right, to cheat. So those are probably more likely what we're seeing when we look at a poll of 70,000 students about have you cheated in high school. 95% of students, and this was like a few years ago before AI was prevalent, 95% of high school students said, yeah, I cheated in some way in high school. 58% they cheated on a test, 64% said they committed plagiarism, but 95% are saying there's some form of cheating that I've done. So again, not all of our students, not 95% of our students are lazy or bored or don't care. So it really is coming from that other side of things, a lot of them. So there are some things we can do around those reasons that can kind of combat and prevent some of that cheating before we get to the detection. So first, how are we preventing cheating? We have kind of 4 big ideas. We can kind of reduce the culture of stress in our classroom. That one's tough, especially when we're teaching a class like an AP class that we have a certain amount of content we have to get through. That's the way that it works. You want to pass the AP exam. It is a college level course, but maybe there are some things we can do to reduce the culture of stress as a whole in some ways. We can talk about honesty in our classroom, both at the beginning of the year and then throughout the year. We can help students with and I don't know that this was on the last slide, but students are like, this is just too hard, I can't do it. Being kind of thoughtful around the way that we encourage a growth mindset in our students. That can kind of help us here. And then at the end, we'll look at the cheat prevention tools we have built into the platform. So outside of your kind of classroom culture. And so the reduction of stress, and again, if I looked at this my first year, I was like, they have to do everything, like there's so much work they have to do, and they're just gonna have to figure out a time to do it, and I'm not changing, and it's due on that date, and there's no give anywhere. That was the way that I saw it in the beginning, and I do think there's some good that comes from telling students this is when things are due, and you need to learn to like manage your time to make a deadline. Like we said, there are some cases where I had to go away for this competition and I had to have this game, or the theater performances of this weekend. I spent the whole weekend at school and I didn't have time to do it. Having students have that relationship with you where they know that they can come and tell you that, is there anything I can do in this case? Can I have an extra day? Like if your students feel comfortable having that discussion, it does really cut down on the feeling of like, my only option is to cheat. If they know they can come to you on Friday and say, this is what my weekend looks like, you just assign this assignment, I don't think I'm going to have time. And maybe there's something that they can do to work with you there. It might be rethinking some of our homework expectations. Again, when we have those classes that have a test at the end of the year and we really have to get through a lot of content, sometimes there's not a lot of wiggle room for us, but if there's anything we can do to kind of lessen the amount of homework that they're getting. If they're in 5 AP classes, they might be getting an hour of homework from each teacher, and then they also have basketball practice after school. Like, how do we get all those things done at once? We probably can't. So trying to rethink those expectations, maybe accepting late work at a penalty. We still want to try and get things done by the deadline, but maybe having a little bit of flexibility there. I feel like I should be telling this to myself 10 years ago, but I'm just saying it now. Talking about honesty, I think, is a really big one too. I know that for some students, it's like, what exactly is cheating? Like it depends, right, on the assignment. Sometimes it depends on the course. You might have a discussion about students with what explicitly cheating means in this classroom, and it might be different on every assignment. So it might be that we have different levels. Like this assignment is a level 0. You can't talk to anybody about it. You can't get debugging help from anybody. You can't go on the internet for help. It's all from your own brain. Or we might say, okay, we're at a level 1 for this assignment. So you can ask for debugging help, or you can ask ChatGPT, how do I write an if statement? But we're not getting any actual code from other people or from the internet. Or maybe I'm at a level where we're actually collaborating. We're going to work on the assignment together, and I just need to cite who's doing what part. So I think being really explicit for each assignment, what is academically integrous, is that a word, for this assignment, might change from assignment to assignment, but being really explicit about it in class is helpful. We might have a notice of collaboration. So if I work on an assignment with somebody, maybe it's built into your class that if you did work together, you need to cite that somehow, the same way we cite sources in other classes. Maybe in my comment at the top of my code, I write, I worked on this with Sarah, she wrote this function, and then she helped me learn how to do X, Y, and Z. So talking about like positive collaboration and really reflecting on what we're getting from collaborating with others. We do also suggest that you have a honor code, and I'm going to give you a link to the CodeHS honor code in the chat. So the honor code, it could be something that you use directly from CodeHS. It could be something you modify a little bit to fit your classroom, or you could have your students help write an honor code for the class. We see these in colleges. They'll see them on their AP tests. Like we have a lot of places where they're signing honor codes. For the CodeHS one specifically, we have a section on academic honesty. So I understand what academic honesty is. I know that copying somebody else's code, taking credit for code that was written on the internet is not academically honest. Letting other people copy my code. This one was a big one. In my class, I felt like students would give their code to somebody else, and then when they would get a 0, they'd be like, well, I did my work, so why am I getting a 0? I didn't cheat. So really explaining, like, even if you're the one giving the code out, that's still not honest, right? You're doing your own work and you're keeping it to yourself. So including that in the honor code, I think, is important. Also, posting solutions online is not honest. So you might not have given them to people in your own class, but giving them to the world is still not acceptable. So we have that section on our honor code. We also have a second section, not necessarily related to academic integrity, but a good part to add in anything in your computer science class. This is a class for some students, it's the first one where they're kind of on the computer for a good portion of the course. So really talking about not just I need to have academic integrity, but I also should be a good digital citizen. So I'm not writing inappropriate messages online. I'm not abusing the classroom computer science equipment, or other things on the internet that are not related specifically to academic integrity. So I think having a code of conduct or an honor code is a great thing to do at the beginning of the year. You can reference it throughout the year, making sure that students sign it and say, like, yes, I do understand. I'm doing my own work. I'm not giving my work to other people. And that is it. So again, that's something from CodeHS, or you can have your students write one as a class, kind of like classroom created norms. We also want to make sure that we are encouraging growth mindset. So again, those thoughts of like, I'm not smart enough, this is too hard, I don't get it, I'm not going to get it, is definitely something we see a lot in computer science, especially if it's a student's first course that has some sort of programming in it. And I think the really big point to drive home with coding specifically is you're not going to get it right the first time. It's not like English class, I'll write a draft and then I write the paper, and typically it's right, like I can turn it in. I might get a couple of things wrong, but the paper is, correct. With computer science, it's like it all has to be perfect sometimes before I can even hit run. So it is a block for me, right? That I don't get any of the satisfaction of running the code until I have no errors. But one thing to really point out to students is nobody can write 500 lines of code, hit run, and it works perfectly. Not after you've been developing software for 10 years, no matter what. Every programmer has to go through the process of debugging. And the truth is, if a student wrote 500 lines of code, hit run, and it worked perfectly, they never learned the skill of debugging, so they're not a good programmer, right? You have to be able to debug to be able to be a good programmer. So it's like in computer science class, it's not just like it's okay to make mistakes, it's like you have to make mistakes to learn some of those skills, like the debugging skills. So talking about like, yeah, it's challenging, but I can work towards learning this, or I can get better at this. I don't come in with a certain amount of smartness in computer science, and that's just where I live. Like I can get better at this. And I will give you the link to where this comes from. This is our week 0 lessons. Let me copy. So we have a set of lessons, and not all of these are related to what we're talking about right now, but they are all great. So I'll just give you all of them at the same time. These are some lessons that are good at the beginning of the year. That's why they're called the week 0 lessons. But these are a great place to start with students to learn about, like, for example, this growth mindset lesson under goal setting is one of the options. Talking to students about how they're going to participate in computer science class. We also have the digital citizenship lesson that does talk about that honor code. So they do sign that at the end of the course. And a lot of these are good for just like building kind of that classroom culture where it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to ask or make mistakes, and that's expected in computer science. All right, so those are all of the kind of pedagogy, classroom culture kind of things, but we're going to get into the actual like CodeHS, what can I do on this platform to prevent cheating? And again, if you have other ideas that you've used on the site, please feel free to throw them in the chat, and make sure to look at that as you're going through today too, to pull other people's ideas. The first thing I'll show you is alternate exercises. And I have one of my sections opened right here. This is, once I go into my course, right, I click on assignments and I can get to my assignments page. The alternate assignments are going to be what they sound like, alternates to assignments that already exist, but they are going to just be like a little bit different. So the alternate exercises are going to test the exact same concepts. They're not going to be more challenging or less challenging. It's just a little bit different. I know that we see, like with any online curriculum, students will Google CodeHS answer and then the question, right? Like that's a pretty standard thing. And because it's an online curriculum, we do see answers posted online. I will say our support team is really great at pulling those down. So if you find a website that has CodeHS answers, please let us know and we will work on getting those pulled down. But it is kind of a game of whack-a-mole, right? So like there's always a new set of GitHub answers for everything on the whole platform of CodeHS. So we pull them down, they go back up. Alternate exercises are a good way to combat that because they're not ones that are used super often. So I'm going to go to one of my lessons here and I'm going to pick one of these exercises and turn on the alternate exercises. So this team rankings here is one that I can do this for. Now I will say alternate exercises aren't available for every class, but I will give you the help article for all of these things when we're done. And you can check to see if your class is in there. So if I want to give the alternate exercise for team rankings, I'm going to go to the 3 dots next to team rankings and I'll see under general, it says use alternate exercise. If I click on that, it'll tell me I'm currently using this one. There's one alternate exercise I can choose. I can click on the eyeball to look at what both of those look like. This is the first one, and we'll see this one is just about switching values in variables. So learning how to swap variable values. And for this one, I have a list of schools, I guess football teams is the goal here. So I have a list of football teams in a certain order, and I want the output at the end to be a different order. So students are flipping them around. The alternate exercise is exactly the same, but the original list and the output list at the end are different. So it just is same concepts, same amount of difficulty, just a different order. If they copy and pasted an answer for the original version, it would not pass the auto grader, is the point here. So I can do that. I can select the alternate one, say use alternate exercise, and it will change it for me in my course. The next thing we're going to look at is some of them don't have that. Most of them do, but especially the ones that are pretty straightforward, like this our first integer. I think that you just create an integer and maybe print it out. Maybe we're not even at printing, I don't know. But a very straightforward one might not have that. So if I click the 3 dots for this one, I'll see that's grayed out. I can't use an alternate exercise here. So an alternate to the alternate exercise, this one is a pro feature. I can change this assignment name on my own. I'll show you. So these assignments are all tied to the CodeHS curriculum, right? So if a curriculum developer makes an update to one of these assignments, it'll update for you. Say there's like a typo, they go in and fix the typo, it'll show up different for you. We don't give everyone access to change them, right? Because then everybody in the whole world could change all the curriculum for everybody in the whole world. So we don't have that, but I can make a copy of this and then have my own personal copy that I can change. So I'm going to, for this one, again, click the 3 dots and I'm going to click fork under configure. It says, are you sure you want to fork? It tells me the one big thing here is that now I'm kind of severing the connection between my assignment and CodeHS. So if there was a typo or something like that and a curriculum developer updated the CodeHS version, it won't affect yours. So that's the one thing to remember as we make these forks. But I can fork it. Now I have my own copy of it. And I'll see I now have exercise 1.2.5, our first integer, that's the CodeHS one. And then I have my forked copy here. I'll see I have a new button here that says edit. So I now am able to edit this assignment. The nice thing here is that it brings everything. It brings the starter code, the solution code, the auto grader. If you had due dates already set up on it, all of that will come directly. It'll be copied exactly. But now I can click edit here. And I could just, something as easy as changing the name of it. So if I change it to using ints and save it, it's going to show up for my students just called using ints. It doesn't have the numbers anymore. And if they search CodeHS answer using ints, they won't find anything because I named it that. So that is one nice way to keep, if that's a way that you feel like you're getting a lot of cheating, that's one way to combat that. Right now, the way it's set up, they would see both of them. I probably don't want them to see both. So my options are to go to the original one on the 3 dots. I can remove it from the course. I'll just delete it from my course. Or if I, as the teacher, want to still have access to it, I can come to the, and this is a pro, you can remove it either way, but if I go to the assign settings as a pro feature, I can unassign it from students and it will hide it. They won't be able to see it on their side. So if I'm going to fork things, I can either delete the original one, or I can unassign it, but I do want to make sure I don't have both of them set there for students to do the same thing twice in a row with different names. All right, that is forking. What do we have next? So that's alternate exercises, forking. Look at copy paste prevention. So this is one of your course settings. Again, this is a pro feature. So if I go to my course settings at the very top and click the drop down, one of my options here is copy paste prevention. And that page looks like this. So this is one I think we like to use kind of with discretion, because there are sometimes reasons why I might want to copy paste. Maybe I have, there are some CodeHS assignments that build on each other. So it might say, go back to your last assignment, copy that code and put it here. If you have copy paste turned off for students, they wouldn't be able to do that. So this is one that I wouldn't say make a sweeping, like, okay, nobody can copy and paste ever in the code editor. But I can turn this on for certain assignments, for certain modules, for certain lessons. So I could say, okay, for using objects, I really want to make sure nobody's copying and pasting in the second lesson. I can toggle it on, and then my students can't copy and paste for that full lesson. Another reason you might not want to turn it on actually is solved now. If you are teaching a class that has, like, usually the web design courses, or one where you're going to need an image URL. Sometimes we have assignments where they need to paste a URL in. You can still put copy and paste prevention on, and then at the bottom of this page toggle and say, but I do want to allow them to paste URLs. So if you find that you need to paste URLs a lot for your HTML assignments or something, you can toggle that on, and it will kind of override that copy paste prevention turned off. So the copy paste means in that center window where they're coding, they can't copy anything from there and they can't paste anything to there. So that's what the copy paste prevention does. This will do it for all students. But if you feel like most of my students, I don't feel like we're having a problem with this, but I have that one student that I feel like I'm seeing a lot of copy paste. I can do this for one student. So you'll see at the top of this page, here it says students. So I might say, this HAL 9000 kid is copy and pasting everything he does. So I can go just to his settings. It'll look like that. And I can turn on copy paste prevention for just one student. Again, I can do it for one unit, for one lesson, for one assignment, and this will override whatever it is on your full class set. So we can turn it off for some. Maybe it's a privilege we have to earn back if we have a little bit of too much copy and pasting for one student. And yeah, so that'll be also under course or under copy and paste prevention. So again, I'll go to course settings. In here, I'll go to copy paste prevention. From there, I can pick a certain student for their copy paste settings. All right, the next thing I want to show you is the quiz settings. So we're talking mostly so far about the actual code that we're wanting to prevent the cheating on, but we do have some quizzes, right, in CodeHS. So some of them are just those checks for understanding that are just a couple questions, but sometimes we have those unit quizzes that are longer. You do have a setting in your course settings again. This one's all the way at the bottom, quiz settings. And this one will let you shuffle the quiz questions for any of those units if you want to do that for your quizzes. So if you have students at every computer next to each other, and you like, it just makes it easier if they're taking a quiz right next to each other, you can shuffle those quizzes, all the questions there. And then the last thing I'm going to show you in cheat prevention, this one is also accessible on our academic integrity dashboard, but I'll show it to you here just because it will let me do it for these fake students if I do it here. If I go to my progress dropdown and go to real-time dashboard, this is new, so this might be a page you're not used to seeing. This real-time dashboard is a way for me to see what my students are doing on CodeHS currently. I can't see what they're doing on other websites, but this tells me what each kid is doing on this platform right now. And as they move around, this stuff will change. But what I want to show you here is this focus mode for this course. So if I have students that I want to be taking a quiz, say on CodeHS, but I don't want them to be able to go back and look at their other exercises, I can start this focus mode and it will direct every student on CodeHS to one particular assignment. So if I picked, like, here's a check for understanding printing in Java, I can pick that. And now all students, and these are fake students, so it's not actually going to send them there, but all my students are on printing in Java right now. It'll tell me how many of them are actually online. And everybody can only go to that website in CodeHS. Now, of course, they can open another tab and go somewhere else on a different website, but anything they do on CodeHS, it'll bring them right back here. You'll see there's a timer here. That's mostly so that if I forget to stop focusing them and they at home, like go home that night and want to work on assignments, it's going to still keep them on here. So we have this 1 hour kind of just default time. You can add more time to it. So I can, if I have a 90-minute block and I want to give them all 90 minutes, I can keep adding the plus 10 minutes until I get to the amount of time. I can also stop it at any time. I don't have to wait for it to tick all the way down to the end. From here, if I say, okay, we're moving on to the next assignment, I can click the arrow and we'll focus everybody on the next one. So when they click next, it'll take them only to there. They can't go anywhere else. I can also click the edit and pick a different place for them to be focused on. So it's kind of a way to tunnel everyone to one page on CodeHS at a time. Okay, so those are our cheat prevention tools. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to give you I'm just going to put them in one big block, knowledge base articles for all of those tools that we looked at. So if any of those are ones you want more information on, you can click on any of those knowledge base articles and those will give you information about that tool. I'll pause for a second, Sarah or Katie, if there's a question I need to answer or anything. I talk pretty fast. Anything I need to go back and do again.
There are really just some great ideas in the chat, more that than questions. So someone asked if we'll be able to share these after, and the answer to that is yes.
Perfect, okay. All right, so I'm gonna then move on to the main attraction for me, which is the academic integrity dashboard. How do we detect that students are cheating? We, of course, hope that all those prevention measures got us down to nearly 0 people cheating, but how do we detect cheating in the event that it does happen? All right, so we have a new academic integrity center. To get to this, on your left hand, your sidebar over here, you'll see under grading, it says academic integrity. So if I click there, I'll get to this academic integrity center. This holds a lot of stuff in one spot. There's a lot of stuff that we've already looked at that I'll show you is also here in the prevention kind of realm. There's also stuff that you will have seen on other pages on CodeHS that we kind of also put here. So we have everything in one spot. So on the resources page, we'll see some of the stuff we already looked at. So the honor codes here, the alternate exercises, and we have some previous webinars where we're talking about how to prevent cheating that you can watch back. And then up across the top are all of these tools that we can look at for detecting cheating. So the first one is the plagiarism report. This is, again, like would have been game changing for me that I can look at all this data in one spot. So in the plagiarism report, I can pick the section I want to look at, I can pick the assignment I want to look at, and I can pick the student I want to look at. So I'm using a CodeHS section. So this is an engineer at CodeHS, so we can see she didn't cheat. Spoiler, she did this one by herself. But we can look at, did Sabrina cheat on this assignment? So here's all of the stuff that I have on this page, and there's a lot to look at, so we'll just go through each part of it. The top part tells me how long the student spent on this assignment and what the section average was. So I can see Sabrina spent 9 minutes on this assignment. The section average was 7.6 minutes. So we're at about average, right? A kind of red flag for us would be if it was super low, and I'll show you an example of that in a second. Then we also have the number of snapshots. So the number of snapshots will be every time I clicked run, every time I click save, every time I pasted something. Basically, when I'm interacting with the code or the IDE in some way, I'm getting a snapshot. When I press submit, that is a snapshot. So Sabrina had 29 snapshots. The section average was 30.6. So again, just about average. I have that same information in little bar graphs right here to kind of give me, if I don't want to have to even read through, I can just look at the bar graph and that'll give me a good idea. Is she about average? Is she way off average? And then we need to look at that in more detail. So I have that information. Then I have, again, this might be my favorite part of this page. This is the code comparison. So I can look at Sabrina's code on the left and the CodeHS solution on the right. And I get up here a similarity score. So how similar was her code to the CodeHS solution code? It's between 0 and 100, so it's like percentages. We say, and if you hover over this little I, it'll tell you scores of 75 and above indicate higher similarity. That doesn't mean that if it says 75 or higher, then they cheated on this assignment. Some of the assignments are a little bit shorter, more straightforward. There's only 1 or 2 ways to do it. So I wouldn't say like that is a definite, they cheated if it's 75 or higher. But it is kind of, once we get up into the 70s, kind of time to look and see more into these tools, like what happened here. So I see Sabrina and the solution, but I can also look at Sabrina's code versus somebody else in the course. So Sabrina and Mike have a similarity score of 47%. So again, way below the threshold, but I can look at their codes next to each other and see how similar they were. I can click this little checkbox over here that says show differences, and I can even see which of the lines are different from the other student. Below that, if I don't want to click through all of them, and obviously you'll have a lot more students than the 8 that are in here, I can see down here kind of a overview of all of the other students. Again, I'm on Sabrina's page, so I can see how similar is she to these other students. And I can search for students here. So maybe I want to say, I know she sits next to Lauren. Let me double check and make sure their code isn't super similar. It's not. I have 25% here, so they're doing fine. So I have all of that up here, and then the bottom, maybe this is the best part. I don't know. This and the code comparison are the 2 best parts. The code replay here is awesome. This is, I get like every keystroke that Sabrina made while she was writing this code. I can watch her code it in real time here. Crazy. How did they do it? I don't know. But this is really helpful. One, for obviously the academic integrity part of it. Like I can see if she pasted, copy and pasted code or what happened. But I also get kind of a view into my students' brains, like how did they go about solving this problem? So if I have, like, I know when I would teach for loops, for example, I would want students to do the inner part of the loop. I want the actual, like the regular part of the code to work and then make it happen 100 times. Like can we make it happen once and then make it happen a bunch of times? So I could see here, is Sabrina trying to write the whole loop at once, or is she trying to get the like meat of it to work before she tries to make it repeat? So I can get some insight there. And yeah, so I can watch the whole thing here. Crazy how that works. But I can tell from all of the stuff we've seen on this page, Sabrina did not cheat on this assignment. Good job, Sabrina. Who did cheat is me. This is fake me. I didn't really cheat on this. I had to put myself in here and copy paste. So here's an example of one that we would look at and say, okay, red flag, something's happening here. I have the same data, but here I see, okay, Lindsay spent 0.2 minutes on this. Everybody else spent 7.6 minutes on this. So already, okay, kind of red flag. There's no way she finishes in under a minute. Everybody else took several minutes. She had 3 snapshots. Everyone else had about 30. I can see that in the bar graphs, very different from the average, right? I can see the code comparison here that the student code was exactly 100% the same as the solution code. If I click show differences, the only thing I did was I took out the comment that said sample solution. So at least I was on it enough to take that out, but everything else exactly the same. I again can look at my similarity to other students, and then I can do the code replay. So I click play, don't blink, you'll miss it. I just deleted everything and then pasted it. So I can see that that's what happened. While this is something we would call a cheat detection tool, I do think this is also like a huge prevention tool. If I show students at the beginning of the year, hey, let me show you what I can do on CodeHS. I have one student where I say, hey, can you copy and paste something real quick? I then show their code here. When students see like, oh my gosh, they have a lot of data on how I'm coding, it works almost as prevention as well as detection. Okay, so that was the plagiarism report. The next piece is the code timeline. And the code timeline is going to look like this. The newest stuff is on the left-hand side and the oldest stuff is on the right-hand side. So it's kind of like maybe backwards of what I would think, but the most recent stuff is by the student name. So this just shows me a little bit more information about, did this student wait until the day it was due? Like maybe this is the due date and I see one kid that all of their edits are clumped up right there. I can see everything happened right there. Is this a student that worked throughout the day? This one is just 1 day assignment and was a pretty short one. So we don't see a ton of edits, but I can see what a student's code looked like at a certain moment in time. So maybe I think Eli and Mike, I think they both have the same exact code. Can I tell who actually wrote the code and who copied it? I can see, okay, well, Eli's was right here, not actually, and Mike's was right here. So I can see who finished it before the other one. That is code timeline. Code history is something that we did already have access to, right? I can see this in the IDE, and I'll show you where that is. But I can see the code history for this student, all the way back to the beginning of when she started the assignment. So I can see this is how it started. I can see this is how she continued. And I can also see up here, you'll see it says like pasted code here. So I can tell the reason that it's saved here was because she pasted something. And I can see here I have some URL, so that's probably why she pasted. I can also see, oh, she was smart and she knew this function and this function were going to be pretty much the same. So she copy and pasted it and then made the edit she needed to. So I can see every time that there was a change made and what exactly the change was. Again, this is something we already have access to. So if I go to my view assignment in the IDE, I can see this is right, the student side. I can see the students page. If I go to more history, that has already existed there. So it's still the same items, the same information, but we have it all kind of in one spot on the academic integrity dashboard. But if you wanted to kind of dive deeper into that student's code, you can click view assignment in IDE and it'll take you back to that page. We have a separate page for code replay. So if you just wanted to look at the code replay, this is the same thing that's on that plagiarism report, but I can see it as just one big window here. Time tracking is something that we've also seen before. This is already in our progress monitoring on your course sections, but it kind of fits in here, right, with academic integrity. So we added here as well for like an easier all-in-one kind of place. There is a new view for this, which is kind of cool. So I can see, like for this functions module, this is how long everybody took on each of these assignments. So again, when I see something really low, that does alert me, like maybe this student copied code here, or they got it from somewhere else because they did it so quickly. But it also gives me a good view of students who might be like silently struggling, right? So if I see someone that spent 100 minutes on something that everybody else took 10 minutes on, is that a student that really needs help but isn't comfortable asking for some reason, or like feels like they have to like do it themselves? Maybe that's a student I need to check in on. So another way to use this view. We have right now the table view, which is how we usually see it. We do have the box plot view, which I don't fully remember what the box plot is for, but I believe that the ends, we have like the highs and the lows, the how long it took students. And this line in the middle is kind of the median. So it gives me an idea, are we all kind of taking about the same amount of time? Is there like a huge range of how long something took? Do I have somebody who is like a super outlier? So maybe they, I mean, I think you have to be like actively working on the assignment for it to count time. So I don't think this is just a matter of like, I left the page open, I walked away. But I can see those outliers. I can see how long it took my students. This is also super helpful. If it's my first year teaching this course, it gives me information for next year, right? Like I can look in the lesson plan and see how long CodeHS thinks this assignment will take. But this is real data from my class. Okay, my class, it says it takes, 10 minutes for them to do this assignment. CodeHS thought it would probably take 5 minutes, but I'm going to remember this for next year that I need to build in a little bit more time. So that is one of the options of views as well here. We then also have focus mode here again. I didn't use this one because this is all real people and I was afraid I was going to focus mode somebody who was actually working on the site, but all your focus mode for all of your classes are here too. And then some of those settings we looked at are here as well. So under settings, I get those quiz settings right here, so I can change those. I can shuffle everything for my course here. I can also decide if I want to turn off the collaboration chat in the sandbox for students. That's another option here. And I can turn off paste prevent or copy paste for all students in this section for the whole thing. If I'm like, okay, we're doing a project that I'm taking as an assessment right now, so I don't want any copy and pasting, I can just toggle it on when class starts, toggle it off when it ends. So all of those settings are there for you as well. I'm going to go back and make sure I hit everything. I did. All right, are there any, before we give the survey, do we have any questions, Sarah, that I should answer?
We have the question about how the time is calculated and if the time is shown.
It's not just the time they're on the tab, and I feel like I would have to look farther into exactly how long it times out, but I think it's
it's 40 seconds.
Yeah. So like they could get 40 seconds of idle time where they aren't actually working, but that's the most they'll get before they start working again. Okay, well, in that case, that is all that I have for you on the academic integrity tools, the prevention tools we have, the detection tools we have. I would spend some time in the Academic Integrity Center if you haven't before. There's a ton of information in there. And again, something you can use to show your students, oh, look what I can do, as also a preventative measure.